The NFL draft is finally almost here. In this video, we are going over my mock draft 3.0. It's a realistic one. This could actually happen. It's not likely, but a lot of these picks are going to happen when we get to the draft very soon here. It's going to be a little bit sad once mock season is over, but we will get through it and on to the next part of the offseason. So here we go. Mock draft 3.0. Obviously, the Tennessee Titans have the first pick, and they need a quarterback, and we're going to evaluate who should they take. Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, or Cam Ward. Well, Cam Ward seems to be the most clutch of these quarterbacks, have the best arm talent and pocket ability to be able to manipulate it and find guys down the field. So we're going to have the Tennessee Titans taking quarterback out of Miami, Cam Ward, one of the easier picks in the draft. I know they're going to be taking him over the likes of Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter, but those will be taken very shortly. After that, the Cleveland Browns looking at Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter and having to make a choice, but it's also a choice. They need a quarterback. Deshaun Watson isn't playing there anytime soon, and the quarterback situation isn't very strong. So what are they doing at the quarterback spot? Well, they're going to be able to find one later on in the draft or throughout free agency, or again, just roll the dice going forward without getting a young QB. So they're going to take the multi-talented Travis Hunter out of Colorado, playing both ways and finding ways to utilize him on both sides of the field. Now, there has been a lot of talk about Shedeur Sanders going to the New York Giants, and I buy it. He is surgical when he has time to throw the football. Was able to look at some of his tighter games. He played in some big moments and had to make some really difficult throws. Rolling to his left, he was arguably the best player in college football with his ability to throw to his other side. So Shedeur Sanders at 3, this is where things have been a little bit surprising lately, has been that Carter and Hunter are the 2 and 3rd spots. So how about Shedeur Sanders goes 3rd overall to the New York Football Giants. At number 4, if they're sitting there at number 4, the New England Patriots, and they don't take Abdul Carter, frankly, they need to fire everybody. Abdul Carter at number 4, he is probably the best player in the draft, him or Travis Hunter. You can debate about that. Maybe I'll debate myself, but Abdul Carter going at number 4 to the New England Patriots. At number 5, this is where the draft really begins, is once we've had Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter off the big boards and the quarterbacks that we most likely think will get taken do get taken. So the Jacksonville Jaguars, you could argue that taking Mason Graham would make the most sense for them, and I would agree with you, because bringing in an absolute game wrecker in the middle, again, the traits aren't necessarily there of what you would be preferred to have in defensive tackle, but Mason Graham at number 5 would make Jacksonville better immediately on defense, and he's going to find a way to ruin the game plan of other football teams. So Ashton Jeanty to 6 with the Oakland Raiders, pairing him with Pete Carroll. This would normally work out for a lot of teams, but to Pete, he's thinking about the depth, how many running backs there are this year, and how to be smart to maximize the amount of weapons he gets. So he actually goes with the wide receiver out of Arizona, Tet McMillan. The Las Vegas Raiders go with Tet McMillan out of Arizona, the big-bodied player to be able to help out Geno in red zone situations. The Jets sitting there at number 7. They wanted a tight end last year, really thought they were going to get Brock Bowers, and so they're staring at a big board where there's the 2 best tight ends available, where there's a whole bunch of defensive talent, but wouldn't exactly trust them to be able to pine and find out which that is. So how about Will Campbell? Let's make things very simple and take who's maybe the best offensive lineman off the board. Certainly people are going to be looking at that arm length, but frankly, who even cared about arm length when he was dominating opposing players in the SEC of all places? I think he will be fine. So the Carolina Panthers At number 8, look, there's still a bunch of needs that they need after mortgaging their future to get Bryce Young, and frankly, when they did that, the future hasn't been, let's just say, all that great. Don't have a second rounder, thanks to the Chicago Bears still with that fleece. But with Bryce Young, they would have really wanted to get a Ted McMillan, so now they're going to be looking to their needs on the defensive side of the ball. And so how about they take the multi-talented, absolute athlete, arguably one of the best athletes that is in this draft, and that's Jalen Walker out of Georgia. Maybe a tad bit undersized for what you would like, but still has the ability to wreck games. Just watch the film against Texas. At number 9, the New Orleans Saints. If Shedeur Sanders was there, they would have been a perfect fit to grab him, but instead, they're going to be looking at the defensive side of the football, where there's going to need a little bit of help still. So if we get to a spot where New Orleans has still the needs to be able to fill in a guy up front like Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss, who was at one part or another the best player in high school football. Didn't quite have the college career, but again, he would fit very nicely in New Orleans, and they would really be better off with him. So the Chicago Bears, they've got their options. They could take Will Johnson. They could take Jahdae Barron at corner, Tyler Warren. This is the luxury that you have when you're able to turn around the trenches of your team in 1 week. A little bit less than that, filling in their center, their right guard, left guard, defensive end in Dayo Odeyingbo, and then picking up Grady Jarrett, a defensive tackle. So they're going to go with the best available, and the best available is probably Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State, a weapon, a force of nature with a ball in his hands when he's coming at you in space. It's not just because he could make you miss, it's because he might just run right through you and find his way into the end zone in a couple of seconds after that. So Ben Johnson gets his playmaker to hand the ball off to in Ashton Jeanty. At number 11, if this so happens for Kyle Shanahan, I think he would be pretty happy taking Will Johnson out of Michigan at spot number 11, the best corner, in my opinion, over Jahdae, over Travis Hunter. He would be maybe the third or the fourth best player in this draft. If we were able to see a full season, he had 2 pick six last year before he got hurt and was the best corner in the country before that happened. At number 12, Dallas Cowboys again. There are a number of needs for them going into the NFL draft. This thing is tough, and it's getting tougher because the competition in their division is getting all that much better. A running mate for Micah Parsons, a running mate for CeeDee Lamb, another running back. They would like to have a bit more draft capital. Cannot be able to defend them taking a guy like Amarian Hampton at the 12 spot, though, when they could be able to take a running back a little bit later on with this class. So in terms of who would be the best available player for them to take, it's going to be filling in a specific need, and that is getting pressure on the quarterback, that is shutting down the run game. So if they were able to take this guy, Kenneth Grant, out of Michigan, they would be immediately a better defense. He has the potential to be the best player in this entire draft, and I see that confidently. I'm an Ohio State fan, and Kenneth Grant and what he did to the Buckeyes last year in the last game of the regular season was very hard to watch. Kinshawn Judkins, Travion Henderson, Will Howard, they were not able to get anything going on the ground. Kenneth Grant goes to the Dallas Cowboys at number 12, so 2 Michigan Wolverines go back-to-back. At 13, the Miami Dolphins, look, they're going to need a corner, and Jahdae Barron, him being there, he would be a very good choice for Miami. Look, is Jalen Ramsey even going to be with Miami for that much longer? And it's possible, while I'm recording this, that Jalen Ramsey ends up going somewhere else. So Jalen is not a sure thing to be in Miami, so Jahdae Barron is able to help out for the future for the Miami Dolphins. At 14, this is where I struggle. Like Indianapolis, these teams that have a whole bunch of needs to be able to fill in, and then their quarterback relative instability with a young guy in Anthony Richardson who struggled a whole bunch last year. Where do they turn to? Is it filling in another edge? That's where I would look at. How about another guy to pair with Latu, Mike Green? They go with another defensive player early in the draft, and relatively the same spot as last year as well. So that brings up the Atlanta Falcons at 15. If they were sitting there at 15 and they could pair this speedster and dynamic threat with Drake London and taking Luther Burden, again, might not be their biggest need, but being able to take a player that can win off the line of scrimmage, separate when he needs to, score when he has a little bit of breathing room. That's what Luther Burden did. Didn't have the huge year we thought he might last year, but again, he is very dangerous. Arizona Cardinals, they need to go defense. We can't look anywhere past where the strength is in this team, and that might be in Marvin Harrison Jr., frankly, and Kyler Murray being able to find some space and throw him the football. So on the defensive side, James Pierce Jr. bringing in the Tennessee Volunteer, who's athletic, he's got range, he can be able to drop back in space when they need him to. I think James Pierce would be an excellent selection for Arizona. Just don't know if that's really what they're going to do. I have a sort of a gut feeling that they might go offensive line, but James Pierce at 16 would be my pick as of now. 17, Cincinnati Bengals. Look, they are in desperate need of making that defense somewhat better, a little bit better, just a tad bit better. Can we please get some help for that defense? Is Trey Hendrickson going to be there for that much longer? We don't really know. Derek Harmon out of Oregon. With that defense and who they had, Mateo Uiagalelei, Jordan Burch, Jeffrey Bassa, Derek Harmon, they were loaded, and likely the best of them all, Derek Harmon out of Oregon. At 18, the Seattle Seahawks. This is what I put in my last mock draft, and I am not going to make a mistake and do something different. Look, I would have liked to put Emeka Egbuka, a teammate of Jackson Smith and Jigba's with Seattle, but I just can't see Seattle looking past the speed and athleticism, the dynamic ability of Matthew Golden. Not that Egbuka can't separate the way he does, just think that Seattle is going to be looking to replace the DK Metcalf vertical threat, and Egbuka is somewhat of a replica, a mirror image of what Jackson Smith and Jigba is. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I had taking Jahad Campbell previously, an excellent choice for them. They do need a couple of other guys on the defense to be able to really feel confident about them making another run to the playoffs. But again, success. They were down to the wire with Washington. They had a playoff win against Philly a couple years ago, and then had the Detroit Lions pull away from them just a little bit. But frankly, they are pretty close, and in not that good of a division, they're going to have their options. So Michael Williams out of Georgia falls all the way down to 19 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think Todd Bowles will be pretty happy about that. Now, the Denver Broncos, similar to a couple other teams, I kind of think that they would be inclined to look at a running back for a while. I had a running back in Marion Hampton going in previous mock draft, but in this specific one, we're having them look at wide receiver Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State to pair with Cortland Sutton and give Bo Nix another weapon. Best things you can do for a quarterback that's young in the National Football League is get him a great left tackle to better your offensive line or get him someone on the offensive line to give him better protection and to go get a really good pass catcher for him to work with for a while. So here is where we're going to see our running back. Amarion Hampton out of North Carolina goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They lost Najee. Well, how about the youngster Amarion Hampton with 4.4 mids type speed? He can beat you on the outside. He can run through you. Amarion Hampton goes at 21. Like pretty much all of my mock drafts, if we see a Michigan Wolverine with the likes of Kenneth Granter or Colston Loveland who look to be there for Jim Harbaugh to choose from, would be tough for him to choose from the two of them, but Colston Loveland going to Jim Harbaugh's Los Angeles Chargers, a weapon for Justin Herbert that he so badly needs. That is exactly where we can be pretty confident he would go. Again, Harbaugh is going to be considering him to be one of the best players in this draft. Nobody knows him better than Jim Harbaugh. And how about the Green Bay Packers figuring out what to do at cornerback? Like, is Jair Alexander going to be there? Is he not going to be? So Benjamin Morrison goes to the Green Bay Packers at pick number 23. And at 24, I've had Malachi Starks a whole bunch going to the Minnesota Vikings. Think that he would be an excellent fit. He really would be exactly what they're looking for. They did a nice job on the defensive side, picking up a couple of other players. But in this particular draft, we're actually going to have them going with Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame. An excellent player. You can not go wrong either way taking Watts or Starks, but in this case, Minnesota is going to go with the safety. Frankly, one of those two is going to be there. Be very confident about saying that. So Minnesota is going to get their future at the back end of the defense in this particular draft. Houston, there's no Mecca Ibuka, but there is going to be help from Ohio State on the offensive line, and that would be coming in the form of Josh Simmons, the left tackle out of Ohio State. Again, a great player, maybe the best offensive lineman in this draft. Just don't know how healthy he is or is going to be. But when we get to August, he should be out there in drills and playing in the preseason and might just be the best offensive lineman coming out of this draft in a couple of seasons. Los Angeles Rams looking at a tight end like Tyler Warren and not taking him for Sean McVay and the creativeness of what he is, that would be shocking. Don't think he falls this far, but Tyler Warren at 26 is not an impossible scenario. And so him with Sean McVay and still Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Kyron Williams, my goodness, that Los Angeles Rams offense would be looking very nice. And as good as those picks have been hitting on the defensive side, the Rams just might be the favorite coming out of the NFC West with some confidence from this guy. Baltimore Ravens at 27. I just think that if they could pair a player like Malachi Starks with Kyle Hamilton, like I would have so much fun to watch that. That would be unbelievable. And then Jack Campbell and Jihad Campbell, we would be really having a lot of fun to watch that pairing. If Jihad from Alabama went to the Detroit Lions, they need maybe a defensive lineman. There's a couple guys there that you would be excited to look at. Edge, another defensive back to help. They just need depth. That was the issue from a year ago that we realize now. As you lose a couple of pieces here, any team can do better with depth. And Jihad Campbell, incredibly rangy and versatile linebacker out of Bama. Washington Commanders, again, they could use offensive line help. So at this point, it's sort of like just best available. And if Armand Membu is dropping this far in the draft, people have him going higher. I'm not quite as high as some might be, but Membu going to Washington at 29, and then Kelvin Banks going to the Bills at pick number 30. Again, the offensive line help of what these teams could use, and then Gray Zabel or Donovan Jackson. It's a tough choice to make. Just think that Donovan Jackson, with his versatile ability, could be where the Chiefs go, but likely they would be wanting to pick up Gray Zabel with this run on talented offensive linemen at the end of the first round of the draft. And then the Philadelphia Eagles, with the supreme luxury of being able to take whoever they want. When you win the Super Bowl, you've got pretty much a luxury of being able to take any guy that you want if you didn't lose a whole bunch of players. They lost Milton Williams in the middle of the defense. How about they replace Milton Williams with Tyleik Williams from Ohio State, bringing in a perfect player to replace him. They find somewhere to go with their edge after they lost Josh Sweat. So that is the complete mock draft 3.0 from me. Taking a look through this, a lot of the front looks like it would be up in the air. This all, frankly, depends on that third slot. If Shedeur ends up going at 3 to the New York Giants, if not, this whole thing gets cracked wide open. Again, the offensive lineman falling that far. We went a little bit more defensive heavy earlier in that mock draft, but overall, not too upset with it. Just think that it's the running backs. Is Marion Hampton going to slide that far? Is Ashton Genty going to slide that far to Chicago? Or do the Bears potentially even take him, knowing just how good the running backs are that they could take later in the draft? And then Kelvin Banks at 30 to the Buffalo Bills. I'm starting to think that would be maybe one of the biggest steals that we've seen in a long time in the NFL draft. They could take him. In any case, thank you so much for watching this mock draft. I hope that you enjoyed it. We're going to be coming at you with a whole lot more football content in the days up to the draft and after the draft ends. And I appreciate you for watching. Make sure to comment and subscribe. See you next time.